United States Department of Labor District 9 Supervisor Claims Examiner David T. Woods stated the warrant officer's statements were not credible and that helicopters did not spray Agent Orange.
On September 4th of 2013, I received a phone call from the Office of Workers' Compensation Program, District 9, from Supervisory Claims Examiner David T. Woods. We had a discussion about how he felt and how the office felt the helicopter role was in Vietnam in regards to spraying Agent Orange.
I'm still gathering information all the time, but my question to you all is like the time we had the discussion when you said the helicopters didn't spray Agent Orange. I'm like, my God, I was like, what? I got 50 letters from Vietnam helicopter pilots that call the Department of Labor damn liars. They go, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm just saying what they said. What are they talking about? We sprayed Agent Orange on a daily basis. We put Huey helicopters aside because they stunk so bad. And they go, Steve.
We know about that.
Well, but that's credible. But that's credible.
The situation is that 97% of the Agent Orange was sprayed by Air Force.
Exactly, C-123.
Fixed-wing aircraft.
That doesn't matter, Mr. Wood.
Helicopters and trucks and even spray cans were used for the other 3%. We know about that. So but what it is, it gives a reader the impression of how much they were used. They were not used that much.
That is your interpretation because that's a lie.
Sure it is. No, it's not a lie.
It is a lie.
Okay?
That's your discretion.
Okay, no, it's okay. 97% of the Agent Orange and the other, other agents, purple, white, and whatever, were sprayed by the fixed-wing aircraft. The other 3% by other things, including helicopters.
So you're stating, okay. So you're stating
that's the numerical breakdown of how this stuff was done.
So what does it matter? 3% could be 3 billion gallons. The deal is
we have an idea how many gallons were.
No, they don't. No, now that's another false statement because I can tell that's a false statement because I have, it's called the HUD tapes, and the military states they don't even know how many gallons were sprayed because they did not keep a accurate account. I don't think you've seen that. I've got this down. I got helicopter.
Okay.
It's been submitted.
All this stuff.
But you guys don't pay attention to it.
Sure we do.
No, you don't. You absolutely don't because.
Then Mr. Mark, here's the story. You may submit the materials you have for our consideration. They'll be included in the file. If you don't like our evaluation of it eventually, you will have appeal rights. Simple as that. Now, the other thing is we cannot consider it if you don't submit it.
We submitted everything to make this right. Now you're diminishing it's a helicopter war. It doesn't matter if it was one. It's a helicopter war. Here, let me tell you something.
I'm familiar with.
No, you're not. You're absolutely not. You're absolutely not because let me just speak. Let me tell you.
I give you like 5 seconds to shut up. Okay. I am a Vietnam era vet. I'm familiar with helicopters, the Army, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I read a lot. I'm fairly well educated. Don't give me any grief about not knowing what's going on. Okay. You have your opinions and your views, and you may submit them. But don't tell me I don't know anything. I'm not going to take that nonsense from you. And nobody else is here from this organization. We've had a lot of trouble, and we're tired of it. You may submit your stuff, and we'll consider it and make a decision. But I'm not going to sit here and have you tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, especially when I'm widely read, and I've seen many, many cases. This helicopter thing is nonsense. 3% versus 97%. Okay? They dumped millions of tons of Agent Orange and other stuff on Southeast Asia. Helicopters dropped some, accident on some. The way your father presented is they dropped all of it, and that's not true. Okay, that is what we have tried to make.
Put that in. Show me where my father said they dropped all of it.
He didn't. What he did is he tried to give that impression. Okay?
No, show me where he tried to give that impression. You show me.
I don't think I can.
You're not telling the truth. Let me speak to you.
Here's the story. He submitted hundreds of pages of documents where he asserted this. Okay, and most of it is.
This needs to be investigated.
Just now, this is a prime example of what Mr. Woods felt about helicopter spraying Agent Orange. You just heard me tell him, Mr. Woods, in a previous conversation, you said helicopters did not spray Agent Orange. Did you hear him refute that statement? No, he kept on. He just listened. It's not that he didn't hear it. That's what he believes. But you also heard later on in that conversation, he states, if you don't submit it, we can't consider it. How much credible information have they denied as credible in order for them to deny this claim? Well, he just admitted he believed helicopters did not spray herbicides in Vietnam. In the file material that William P. Mayer submitted as evidence, the Department of the Army wrote on December 20th, 1993, "Dear Mr. Mayer, we know that UH-1D helicopters were used in herbicide spray operations in Vietnam." Mr. Woods, in order to deny this claim, does not consider that document from the Department of Army as credible.
If you don't like our evaluation of it eventually, you will have appeal rights. Simple as that.
For supervisory claims examiner to state, if you don't like our evaluation of it, eventually, you can appeal it. That needs to be investigated. No matter what we submitted as evidence, it was not going to be credible, just as that Department of Army's letter. This needs to be investigated.
This helicopter thing is nonsense. 3% versus 97%. Okay? They dumped millions of tons of Agent Orange and other stuff on Southeast Asia. Helicopters dropped some. Accent on some.
For the United States Department of Labor, District 9, to deny a claim, you would think they would need more facts than supervisory claims examiner just stated. He did say that millions of tons was dropped in Vietnam. He went as far as even stating that helicopters dropped some, accent on some. What is the value of some that was dropped by helicopters? He doesn't provide that number. He also doesn't provide another very important piece of information. How much Agent Orange could a UH-1 helicopter lift off the ground to fly a mission to spray Agent Orange? How many gallons, how many pounds? Supervisory claims examiner only mission was to deny this claim. It needs to be investigated based on the facts I'm going to be providing. In the Medical Research Archives, Volume 5, Issue 10, October issue 2017, in a review article, Agent Orange Use in Vietnam and Alleged Health Impacts, it states, the records confirm that the United States Air Force sprayed 95% of the tactical herbicides in Operation Ranch Hand. The remaining 5% was primarily sprayed from helicopters belonging to the United States Army Corps. I'm also providing information from a GAO, United States Government Accountability Office, in a report to congressional addressees dated November 2018. In this report named Agent Orange, Actions Needed to Improve Accuracy and Communication of Information on Testing and Storage Locations, it provided the following information. Of the tactical herbicides, Agent Orange was used the most extensively in Vietnam. In 1964, DOD began to produce large quantities from U.S. manufacturers for military use in Vietnam. The first shipment of Agent Orange arrived in Saigon in February of 1965 by merchant vessel. Together, 9 manufacturers produced a total of approximately 13.9 million gallons of Agent Orange, and DOD estimated to have used approximately 12.1 million gallons between 1965 and 1970 in operations in Vietnam, and much smaller quantities in Korea and Thailand. Agent Orange used in Vietnam was formulated for aerial spraying by aircraft and helicopters and applied at full strength without additional solvents at a rate of 3 gallons per acre. Agent Orange is soluble in diesel fuel and organic solvents, but it is insoluble in water, so equipment was cleaned using diesel fuel rather than water. According to DOD officials, the commercial herbicides used on installations were mixed with diesel or water and sprayed by hand or truck. Tactical herbicides, however, were formulated for aerial spraying by fixed-wing aircraft or helicopters without being diluted. According to the archival sources, a drum of Agent Orange weighed approximately 600 pounds. So what did we learn? 12.1 million gallons of tactical Agent Orange was sprayed in Vietnam. We learned that 95% of that tactical Agent Orange was sprayed from the United States Air Force. We also learned that the remaining 5% was sprayed from the United States Army Chemical Corps helicopters. So 5% of 12.1 million gallons of Agent Orange comes out to be 605,000 gallons of tactical Agent Orange sprayed from helicopters. We also learned that a 55-gallon barrel of tactical Agent Orange weighs 600 pounds. If you divide 600 by 55, each gallon of Agent Orange is 10.909 pounds. So if you take 10.909 pounds times 605,000 gallons, you get 6,599,945 pounds of tactical Agent Orange was sprayed from Hueys. To calculate how many sorties or missions the helicopters had to fly to spray 605,000 gallons of Agent Orange, you would need to know the quantity that each helicopter sprayed during each mission. I provided the following information to United States Department of Labor for them to figure out and calculate this. They consider this information not credible. David Retton, Monday, March 18th, 2013. I can tell you for a fact that during the last quarter of 1967, I flew as the aircraft commander in the United States Army UH-1H helicopters belonging to Company A, 227th AVN-BN 1st Cavalry Division, equipped with a real Rube Goldberg spray apparatus designed specifically for spraying liquids from helicopters. The equipment consisted of a 55-gallon drum secured to the forward transmission wall in the vertical position. Saturday, March 23, 2013. It consisted of a 55-gallon drum standing vertically in the helicopter. It was a small lawnmower-sized gasoline-powered motor that drove the pump, and hoses connecting everything. The spray boom was a couple pieces of pipe of some sort suspended on each side of the helicopter, but not as sophisticated as those shown on the video. I am sure about the herbicide being a 55-gallon drum and there being a small gas motor to power it, but not so sure about the details of the spray boom. Hey, it's been 45 years. But the point is that I recall the apparatus as being improvised, not commercial. John K. Johnson. What we have learned now as fact is that a 55-gallon drum of Agent Orange was strapped to a Huey that dispersed 600 pounds of Agent Orange on each sortie/mission. If you take the 6,599,945 gallons divided by the 600 pounds of Agent Orange dispersed on each sortie/mission, you get 11,000 sorties/missions that Huey helicopters had to fly to disperse 6,599,945 gallons of tactical Agent Orange. That is not some, as District 9 is stating as fact. The question I had asked in the Vietnam Helicopter Pilot Association was, did Huey helicopters spray Agent Orange, and if they did, what method did they use to clean them? Well, I received approximately 50 responses from helicopter pilots. I'd like to share a few of them. Tuesday, May 20th, 2014, Captain Dick White. Hello, Steve. From March 1967 to March 1968, I was a helicopter pilot with A and B companies, 4th Aviation Battalion, 4th Infantry Division in Plu Cu, Vietnam. I flew on many missions spraying Agent Orange from A Company helicopters. The tanks and systems, which were hand jerry-rigged affairs put together by the Chemical Corps, always leaked all over the helicopters. When spraying, that cross pipe was right up against the underside of the helicopter, just where the tail boom connected to the body. As we did most of the spraying at slow speeds and close to the ground, the rotor wash caused the Agent Orange to fly all around and in and out of the aircraft. We wore gas masks and other protective gear while flying these missions, very hot and uncomfortable. I do not know if the Chemical Corps people ever cleaned the tanks or system. We gave our helicopter a wash down every evening, but this only entailed a clear water pressure wash on the outside. If we happen to also have been hit during the missions or had to do a med evac, happened often, and blood, mud, etc. ended up on the cargo floor, we would do a bit more of a wash with a brush. Good luck, Dick Snappy White. Warrant Officer Dick Roeder, Wednesday, March 20th, 2013. I have no doubt that much of this residue settled into every available opening beneath the deck when it was being flushed. None of our aircraft were sent to an overhaul facility during my tour, but eventually they all had to go somewhere. Good luck in your search for support. Rick Dewar, Ramrod 18. Thursday, March 21st, 2013. When the missions was over, the cockpit and cargo area were covered with the overspray. In addition, the tail boom was covered. It was like a brown syrup. There was no cleanup whatsoever. Gene Alou. Monday, March 25th, 2013. The aircraft as well as the crew as covered in the defoliant. We landed the aircraft in the river below the base so we could be covered by the troops in case of surprise attack. The aircraft was completely washed with soap and water, which removed most of the oily film. I do not remember taking up the floor panels to clean the area below the floor. Eddie Hester.
Captain White provided a subject matter expert statement, first-hand knowledge statement, that he personally saw 3 helicopters that were flown in Vietnam that he ferried back to Iraq, and at Iraq they were as filthy and dirty as when he saw them in Vietnam. He also states that he saw Agent Orange inside these helicopters, him and Billy J.
Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. Steve, one last thing. In 1969, I visited Iraq and located 3 of our shored-up helicopters in the yard awaiting to go in for overhaul. They did not look any cleaner than they did the last time I saw them in Vietnam. May 21st, 2014. Captain White, did any of those 3 helicopters ever spray Agent Orange that you saw at Iraq? May 21st. 2 were slicks and were used for spraying. The other one, the one horseshit got hit in, was a gunship. However, spray missions were many times accompanied by a gun team, 2 gunships. The gunships flew behind to try to protect the slick spray ships and always flew in the Agent Orange mist. The gunships were from B Company. Also, the central high lines along the border and the main highways was very heavily sprayed. Agent Orange was in everything that flew there. Thursday, May 22nd, 2014. Steve, I just read your CCAD webpage. There it is mentioned that the helicopters had other contaminants. Just want you to know that I also flew a number of missions spraying mosquito, bug poison. I think it may have been DDT or something pretty strong. We had to wear gas masks and keep our sleeves rolled down, gloves on. Watch everything we wore after each mission. The equipment we used in the helicopters to spray this was not the same as used with Agent Orange. Still, a lot of the mist flying throughout the helicopters. These were the same aircraft we used to spray Agent Orange. Captain Dick White, Friday, May 23rd, 2014. He and I both can testify that these helicopters we saw at Iraq had lots of Agent Orange deeply within them when they were damaged and shipped to depot maintenance. I can state they did not appear any different or clean from when I last saw them in Vietnam. The tail numbers in 2 UH-1Ds we saw were one of these, 66-15879, 66-15880, 66-15881, 66-15882, 66-15883, 66-15884, 66-15885, 66-19886, and 66-15887. He will always be able to swear that the helicopters were exposed to much Agent Orange while in Vietnam. Billy J was a highly respected quality control 371B maintenance officer. He was the quality control officer on board the Galveston Bay aircraft carrier, which was the highest depot maintenance unit in Vietnam.
This This turn on, there was no Agent Orange. Get that through your head. There's no documentation of it whatsoever, ever was. There never was any documentation for that stuff in the file. The only reason some people thought it because they heard the helicopters were dirty. They thought, well, they could have contained anything. But there's no documentation that anybody ever saw any, ran into any, or had any. It's all in your father's imagination. He thought there was Agent Orange in the helicopters. He saw a movie about it, and he concluded that there was Agent Orange in the helicopters he worked on. That is the basis of the claim, and it's a lousy basis.
That's a good thing that that was recorded. No matter what information we provided, District 9 was going to deny this claim. We provided first-hand knowledge, subject matter experts, and he's still stating there is no documentation stating that there was ever any Agent Orange at a Rat Mac. You have a chief warrant officer state he ferried 3 of them, and that he saw a lot of Agent Orange in the helicopters, and then him and Billy J would swear to it. That's not good enough. That's not good enough if you want to deny a claim at all cost. When I wrote the Vietnam Helicopter Pilot Association, I received, like I said earlier, quite a bit of response, 50 or more. I'm going to be reading from a few of those emails from helicopter pilots that state how they flew Agent Orange, how their helicopters were contaminated after the spray, how they were contaminated, how also gunships were used to protect them. They also state that they cleaned them by using water. As it was stated earlier, the only way to clean Agent Orange is with diesel. These helicopter pilots are stating they use soap and water, so they weren't clean. In fact, by them trying to clean the helicopters with water and soap, they contaminated the helicopters more unknowingly, because now more of it would seep into the floor panels through the rivets that William P. Mayer would have to open up while they were doing an overhaul. Not only did they spray Agent Orange, these helicopter pilots are also stating they sprayed insecticides. Who else knows what they did with these helicopters? It was a helicopter war. William McCurry, Tuesday, March 19th, 2013. Don't remember the number of passes we made up and down the mountain, but the herbicide Agent Orange spray was all over the aircraft as well as inside the aircraft. The mission was flown with the doors open due to the spray booms. No special precautions were taken and no special instructions were given to any of us, crew or spray operator, as this was just part of what we needed to do to save lives of the people working to finish the road up the side of the mountain. If the agent was spilled on the ground, we had a lot of bigger problems to worry about than a chemical spill. Bill McCurry, PhD, Professor Emeritus, Aviation Program, Arizona State University. Michael McFarland, Friday, March 22nd, 2013. We did not take any precautions in handling the stuff, and we are not advised to. Unlike missions where we dropped barrels of powder CS gas and had to have gas masks at the ready, there was no requirements or suggestions of any protective gear while on the Agent Orange mission. I recall that at certain speeds, some of the spray would get caught in the vortex flow and enter the aircraft interior from the aft and circulate forward into the cockpit and then blow out the open windows. When that happened, the whole crew reeked of this stuff, as did the interior of the aircraft. We just showered when we got back and gave our clothes to the hooch mates to wash. I know there were no special cleanup procedures followed after the spray missions. If there was a spill, I suspect it was just wiped up or hosed off. I do remember that after the spray apparatus was removed, the aircraft still had the odor of the chemicals for at least a few days, but it eventually faded. Michael B. McFarland, Attorney at Law. Sunday, March 24th, 2013. I have an air medal with V that clearly states we were spraying defoliants. Needless to say, 50 knots and 50 feet generated a lot of rotor wash. Considerable amounts of chemicals were blown back into the pilot and crew compartments. Typically, the aircraft, both inside and outside, was covered with a film of orangeness, rather sticky liquid. Oftentimes, there were accumulations of a couple of inches in the chin bubbles. All crew members were completely covered, soaked with this liquid, which made our flight suits crinkle when they dried out. Once the missions were complete, the large tank was removed by the Vietnamese and we flew the aircraft to a home station. We always watched the outside of the aircraft with fire hoses when available and smaller hoses from the inside of the aircraft, as well as the areas normally covered by inspection panels and doors. The hellhole was a particularly difficult place to clean, and I don't think we ever achieved satisfactory results. Joe Aceves. Greg Sante, Saturday, March 16th, 2013. Hi Steve, my name is Greg Duke Sante. I flew UH-1s in Vietnam for the 1st Infantry Division in 1967, 68, 69. In response to your article in the Aviator, I can state without doubt that I sprayed all sorts of herbicides on many missions in Vietnam, from UH-1s including Agent Orange. Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013. So we would load the cockpit windows. Doing so would cause some of the Agent Orange to recirculate through the cockpit and be breathed in by the air crew. Kenneth L. Hain, LTC, United States Air Force, retired. Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013. As far as cleanup, probably none, or the crew chief and door gunner wiped out the residue as best as they could. Most likely not, because there was always a next mission. The outside of the bird was cleaned by flying through rainstorms. Until reading the request in the VHPA magazine, the thought had never occurred to me that stateside personnel would have been exposed to residual herbicide. It makes sense that gravity would eventually pull any spray remnants through the floor plates, just waiting to get on anyone's hands that worked on the inner mechanism of any of the spray birds. Good luck wrestling. Chief Warrant Officer Dan Pegg, retired.
Since it's been years since William P. Mayer passed away, and he tried to get the United States Department of Labor to understand helicopters came back from Vietnam contaminated, not was only Agent Orange, but other herbicides and insecticides and unknown chemicals, I too did that as well. So I want to emphasize in this video what Captain White stated. Helicopters that sprayed Agent Orange were called slicks, and they were accompanied by gunships. At least 2 gunships would fly behind them to provide them cover, and that the gunships would fly into the mist and get contaminated as well. Here's another email I received from another helicopter pilot that stated he provided gun cover for United States Air Force fixed wings.
Saturday, March 16th, 2013. Steve, just read your looking for letter in the VHPA magazine I got today. I was a helicopter pilot in the Army and as such did 2 tours in Vietnam. I recall providing gun cover on my first tour to lumbering United States Air Force fixed wing C-123 or C-130 types as they flew low level over the An Lo Valley and over the coastal plains of the Central Highlands, dispersing defoliants and insect control agents. If not Agent Orange, then its precursors in a spray form. In escorting them, we varied our flight patterns, sometimes to the rear of them and sometimes overhead. In all of that, we and our Hueys ingested some of the spray. It was of little or no concern to us in 66 to 67. Never having heard of Agent Orange, as a matter of fact, we view these missions as a break from our more exciting and dangerous scouting mission. Who would have guessed that some 40 plus years later, we would find the lazy escort missions were possibly damaging to us. As the cleanups, we on occasion landed our Hueys on a sandbar in the local river so our crew chief and door gunner could give them a makeshift wash. Our Hueys were only cleaned out by hand as we were in a primitive environment and not an air base. We never had washed or cleaned them specifically because we had flown the spray escort missions. We had no reason to do so. Yes, the DOD may not be very knowledgeable or willing to be truthful. How can they maintain that Army helicopters rarely or never sprayed chemicals in Vietnam? Cheers, Jim Volham.
The United States Department of Labor had this information and dismissed it. It was not credible to them. They consider these pilot statements lies. And the United States Department of Labor stated that Mr. Mayer was never exposed to any hazardous chemicals while repairing these helicopters that came back from Vietnam. We know that's a lie. What we need to do is get it investigated and get their decision overturned. It was a helicopter war, and the helicopters were used to pick up the wounded,
to drop off troops in different locations, to spray Agent Orange, to spray insecticides, to spray other herbicides. Unknown, and also probably spray unknown chemicals. It was a helicopter war. They were used in Vietnam all throughout the war. If anything was getting contaminated in Vietnam, the UH-1 helicopter was the one to get contaminated and then bring that contamination back to Iraq to contaminate William P. Mayer and his co-workers. Yet the United States Department of Labor is calling that nonsense. Friday, March 15th, 2013, Jerry Brooks. Steve, I am personally acquainted with spraying Agent Orange in Vietnam. I was a production control executive officer of the 611th Aircraft Maintenance Company stationed in Vinh Long during the latter part of 1968 until early 1969. We supported the Delta Aviation interests in lower echelon maintenance and down aircraft recovery operations. One of the things we did was to help out the housekeeping of the airfield and was asked if we could spray the perimeter fence line with a defoliant to aid in security. I was a captain as well as an aircraft commander, and together was an infused young warrant officer, borrowed a spray rig from Can Thao, which was a portable rig with a tank that could easily be loaded into the cargo compartment of a UH-1D model, with the spray booms extending outside of the fuselage. Then by securing everything and hooking up a power source for a pump, we were in business. As I remember, the defoliant was named Agent Orange and was very effective in killing green growth. Many troops saw our spraying activity and was totally unconcerned as to the safety of the operation. After all, who was to believe that the United States Army would use something that was lethal around troops? As I remember, the Agent Orange was an orange color and burned the skin when one got some of it on their hands. I only made this one flight, but the spray rig was widely used throughout the Delta.
I'm here at the Statue of Liberty. Most people came to America to seek freedom and justice. Well, that's why I'm here today. I said I'm seeking freedom and justice. And I want you to look at something. Back in 1967, I stuck my hand down in a CH-47 helicopter. Down inside where there was all kinds of gooey stuff, and I was with Joe Espinosa. He worked with me at a Hangar 45. Look, I have had my hand operated on 3 times already. Look I couldn't make it into America looking like this. And I'm asking people to give me justice of what the Corpus Christi Army has done, not only to me, but many men. I'm even ashamed to get around my children with this hand looking like this. And this is the 3rd time I have operated on. I stuck my hand down an Agent Orange that was in the belly of a CH-47. I was taking off a hard point, and I was up top inside, and Joe Espinosa was underneath. And ever since I stuck my hand down in that crap for about 10 minutes, this is what the result was. I'm asking for justice. The government cannot do this to people. Thank you. He's crap.
.97% of the Agent Orange was sprayed by Air Force.
Exactly, C-123.
Fixed-wing aircraft.
That doesn't matter, Mr. Wood.
Helicopters and trucks and even spray cans were used for the other 3%. We know about that. So but what it is, it gives a reader the impression of how much they were used. They were not used that much.
You know, that is your interpretation, because that's a lie.
Sure it is. No, it's not a lie.
Even with all that information provided, on June 5th, 2014, I received a letter. The statements of helicopter pilots which you submitted are included in the file material and have been considered in our findings thus far and will be appropriately considered in any subsequent determinations that we make. We are aware that helicopters were used in Southeast Asia to spray Agent Orange and that UH-1 Huey helicopters was most often used for this. Also, it is to be noted that the vast majority of spraying of Agent Orange and other herbicides and defoliants was done by large fixed-wing aircraft operated by the United States Air Force. A relatively small percentage of Agent Orange was sprayed from helicopters, from spray trucks, and other means. These facts would be also appropriately considered. Sincerely, Karen Spence, District Director for Federal Employees Compensation. Memo to the file. The statement of accepted facts prepared in this manner is based upon evidence submitted by Mr. Mayor and his employer. However, helicopters were only used for this activity relatively infrequently. Generally, Agent Orange and other herbicides and defoliants were sprayed from rather large fixed-wing aircraft operated by the United States Air Force. DTW, SCE, David T. Woods, Supervisor, Claims Examiner.
You have heard me say, no matter what evidence we provide, District 9 is going to deny it. It's true. The fix is in. Here are 2 letters from the United States Department of Labor basically stating no matter what we provide, they're going to deny it.
United States Department of Labor, Office of Workers' Compensation Programs, May 22nd, 2013. Our view is that the people who provided information and statements relating to your father's several claims did so in the belief that they were providing accurate information. Sincerely, Karen R. Spence, District Director for Federal Employees Compensation. United States Department of Labor, Office of Workers' Compensation Program, November 15th, 2013. The last portion of your letter asks for an explanation of our statement on information provided by various people in this matter. The statement is literal and self-explanatory. However, to paraphrase it, we do not believe that anyone deliberately provided us with false or erroneous information relating to your father's claims. Sincerely, Karen R. Spence, District Director for Federal Employees Compensation.
As the United States Department of Labor, District 9 is stating and has always stated to deny this claim that Huey helicopters did not play a major role spraying Agent Orange. They stated that helicopters as well as trucks and hand sprayers spray 3%. That's not true. For District 9 to state helicopters are in the same group as hand sprayers and trucks is nonsense. What did we learn? We learned that in Operation Ranch Hand, that C-123s sprayed 95% of the Agent Orange, and that helicopters sprayed the other 5%. What else did we learn? We learned that when a helicopter was loaded up with Agent Orange and went out to spray Agent Orange, it was followed by 2 gunships for protection. They provided protection for that helicopter spraying Agent Orange. When the one helicopter was spraying, 2 other helicopters behind it were getting contaminated as well. So during a one flying mission, 3 helicopters were getting contaminated. What else did we learn? We also learned through another pilot stating that he flew gun cover for C-123s. He didn't provide how many helicopters were used to provide gun cover for these C-123s, but I bet there are more than 1. So in reality, the Huey helicopter was in every aspect of Operation Ranch Hand. The C-123s weren't. They just sprayed it. Huey's not only sprayed it, they provided gun cover for helicopters and C-123 spraying it. And while doing so, while providing gun cover, they were contaminated as well while flying in the mist of this Agent Orange. For the United States Department of District 9 to state that helicopters did not have a major role spraying Agent Orange, they left out the facts that was provided to them. They also provided gun cover. It's just amazing what they did to deny this claim.
The way your father presented it is they dropped all of it, and that's not true, okay? That is what we have tried to make.
Put that in, show me where my father said they dropped all of it.
He didn't. What he did is he tried to give that impression. Okay?
No, show me where he tried to give that impression. You show me.
I don't think I can.
You're not telling the truth.